called to order. Actually, we're already called to order because we were in executive session, so sorry about that. So now we are in open session. Jimmy, for the last time, will you please read the district mission statement for us?
Ipswich Public Schools aspires to empower all students to be global citizens who are effective communicators, analytical problem solvers, and savvy consumers of information. We propose to do this through an emphasis on communication, critical thinking, creativity, self-management, perseverance, and collaboration. Students will be active partners in authentic learning, offering voice and choice and demonstrating competency.
Thank you. All right, so for announcements tonight, the next school committee meeting will be held on Thursday, June 6th at 7 p.m. in the Middle School High School Ensemble Room. Negotiations with the Ipswich Educators Association will be held on May 30th at 4:15 p.m. at the high school. And the Policy Subcommittee will meet on June 4th at 5:30 p.m. in the Middle School High School Guidance Conference Room. Do we have any other announcements? Nope. Okay, well, we should announce that this evening is two members' last evenings with us. So Jimmy Bornstein, who has been our student representative for 2 years, is graduating and moving on to greener pastures. So I just want to take a moment to thank Jimmy for his 2 years with us.
Thank you, Jimmy.
So thank you for giving us a lot of your evenings and time and your important student perspective. So I appreciate you stepping up into this role. I know it's not easy. So we put together a little something for you. To you.
Thank you
So.
very much.
All right, so it is also Jeff Poirier's last school committee meeting with us, as he is not running for reelection. So, I guess another round of applause is in order. So, I thank you for your 3 years of many, many evenings given up from your family to this committee and the town. So we appreciate your effort, and I hope I speak for all of us when I say we appreciate your analytical, lawyerly mind, bringing good perspective to things. So we will miss you, and for serving on the committee for 3 years.
Thank you very much. I certainly have an appreciation for everybody who chooses to volunteer their time and to spend time at evening meetings, and appreciate all of you continuing to do it, and I'll continue to tune in and maybe come to the microphone sometimes.
Good. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
So we also put together a little something for you.
very
It is school committee tradition to give departing members either it used to be an apple tree, and then it kind of morphed into blueberry bushes for a few years, or lilac bushes, but I didn't want to presume what you wanted for your yard, so.
You've probably seen our yard, and it needs some
It's-
work, so thank you.
So you can choose
Well,
what
now
you
you'll have
want,
time.
but it should be enough to buy a little tree or bush or a couple shrubs or
Thank you,
something.
everybody.
So, yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. All right. Special acknowledgements.
Yep. I have several this evening. Last week, the choir and wind ensembles held their final concert of the year. Hats off to Abby Frost, the director of choirs, and Rebecca Pagano, our director of bands, and our students for their very moving performance last week. I thought it was just a great evening. I'm glad that I was able to attend and feel the energy. Their closing number, where they both they did the combined groups, was amazing. I'd also like to recognize Rebecca again in our middle school and high school jazz ensembles. Last night, they performed an outstanding concert at the Shaolin Lu over in Rockport. It was very well attended. The students were just incredible. It was a great night, and you could just see the kids were amazed. The middle school kids were just amazed to be on a stage like that, and the high school kids, of course, just took it in stride, and just everybody just shone. And then finally, this evening, I want to recognize Tracy Wagner, Melanie McFadden, and the STEAM team for the STEAM showcase that just wrapped up. Again, was a lot of planning that goes into that all year long. The number of people that are passing through, I think, increases every year. The types of exhibits continue to grow, and the quality of the exhibits that the kids are putting together has grown so much. And it's just amazing to walk through there and see what our elementary and middle and high school students are doing for classwork and lessons and what they're learning. It's just simply amazing. So kudos to a job well done for all of those folks.
Any other special acknowledgements tonight? Okay. So remarks from the chair. I just wanted to spend a quick minute and make a quick remark. So as many of you are aware, there have been several fights between students in our middle school and high school recently. These incidents represent unacceptable behavior and are being taken seriously by the administration. The school committee is aware, and we are keeping in good communication with the superintendent and the administrators of the buildings to ensure that this does not become a pattern in our schools. We take student safety seriously and will work to keep our schools safe places for students to learn and enjoy time with each other in a safe space. So I just wanted to say that briefly. Do we have any public comments this evening?
Yes, we do.
Welcome. With handouts.
A handout as well, if that's allowed. I'm Becky Slauson. I'm the president of the Ipswich Educators Association. I also teach English here at Ipswich High School. So thank you for letting me be here tonight. I thought I'd just start by thanking you, Jimmy, for all that you've done as the student rep over the last couple of years. You know, you read that district mission statement at the beginning of every meeting, and in so many ways, you're the fulfillment of all the hopes that go into that statement. So thank you for the strength of your voice and your conviction, and for all that you've brought to the role. So I'm really proud of you. And Jeff, thank you so much for your service over the last 3 years. It's stood out to all of us that you really care about kids and you put them first, and that's why you came forward to do this role. So thank you for doing that. I know it's a lot of work and all your time is really appreciated. So thanks. So I came here tonight to represent the high school faculty in asking the school committee to create a district-wide policy banning student cell phone use in all 4 of the Ipswich public schools during the academic school day. As I'm sure you're aware, our elementary schools, Doyen and Winthrop, as well as the middle school, already have implemented a ban, and we're here to ask, as the faculty at the high school, for a similar ban to be implemented for the high school, basically to extend what already exists in the other schools to the high school. This is something we've been interested in implementing for quite a while now. We've gone back and forth about it in faculty meetings for the past several years, trying different things here at the high school. Given the apparent rise in support within the Ipswich community right now and among the staff for a consistent district-wide policy, we thought that now would be a good time to bring it forward to the school committee. According to John Mitchell, we currently have 64 people on staff at the high school. 56 of them signed the petition in front of you. So that's a pretty strong majority asking that our administrators and the school committee develop this comprehensive cell phone ban for the Ipswich Public Schools. We are hopeful that it could be implemented at the start of the 2024-25 academic year. When representatives of the staff met with John and Leanne earlier this week, they both agreed that there is a growing body of research to suggest that young people are experiencing very real harm from excessive cell phone usage, and that its presence in schools such as ours is detrimental to both students' well-being and to their academic success. One of these studies, conducted by Jonathan Haidt, a social psychologist and author of books including The Anxious Generation, supports what Ipswich High School teachers are seeing on a daily basis. Haidt cited one study which found that 97% of students say that they use their phones during class for non-educational purposes. Nearly 60% of students say they spend more than 10% of class time on their phones, mostly texting. This is exactly what we're seeing in our classrooms. Students regularly hide phones on their laps, behind books, so that they can use class time to send Snapchat messages, scroll on TikTok, watch Netflix, online shop, and text their friends. Recent studies have found that the mere presence of a phone and phone notifications decrease performance even when students don't interact with the phones. And that it can take students up to 20 minutes to refocus after they've even just seen a notification pop up on a phone or feel the buzz of the phone in their pocket. For the past few years, we've tried as a staff to implement a middle ground approach at the high school by limiting cell phone usage during academic class time in our individual classrooms. However, teachers who attempt to do this by having students put their phone in phone caddies on the wall, for example, regularly report that class time is wasted arguing with students over the policy. In some cases, students just flat out refuse to do it. And teachers simply can't confront every student or confiscate every device. It further adds to deregulation in class and disrupts the learning environment for everyone. Even when we are able to pull students away from their phones during academic time, the phones are still in their hands between classes, at lunch, and during our block. Many students become verbally hostile or angry when asked to put their phones away during our student support period so that a teacher can encourage them to do academic work, make up a quiz, or receive the extra help that they're supposed to be getting during that time. Some people, of course, Ipswich teachers are not alone in their concern for how cell phone usage during the school day is impacting young people. More and more schools across the country and around the world are enacting policies to ban phones in schools. I'm sure you're aware of this. In 2019, San Mateo High School in California, for example, became the largest school in the United States to become a cell phone-free environment. Nearly 5 years later, the principal considers the change an ongoing success. Students are actually talking to one another, she says. She notes that banning phones has helped with online bullying as well. Even the students admit that it's easier to pay attention in class and that it's a relief to take a break from the screen and the social life on your phone. Many schools in Massachusetts have turned to phone bans, including but not limited to like Salem, Chicopee, Concord, Carlisle high schools. Students interviewed stated that it helps you focus on your work and it's easier to pay attention in class. Some people will say that it's the school's job to teach young people how to use their phones responsibly, but the truth is that we're talking about an addictive behavior. Be honest, guys, how many adults do you know who are truly able to avoid the distraction of technology in a responsible manner at all times? It's unreasonable to expect children and teens who don't have a mature frontal cortex to practice a level of self-discipline in school that many of us as adults are not capable of. And make no mistake, cell phone use is an addictive behavior, and it causes young people in our school very real harm. We've seen kids who we care about experiencing the same increase in loneliness that Haidt has seen rising globally. Our students are not immune to the epidemic of mental illness that started around 2012 with the boom of cell phones and social media. All four of the primary harms caused by excessive cell phone usage that Haidt identifies in his book are impacting Ipswich High School students. So, social deprivation, sleep deprivation, attention fragmentation, and addiction. Students sleeping through their classes admit that their phones kept them up most of the night. In recent years, teachers at the high school have seen an increase in bullying, cheating, disruptive behavior, and general distraction. Fighting has increased both due to online taunting during the school day, as well as the desire to film and post these altercations. We do understand that parents feel the need to communicate with their teens during the school day, but we want to reassure parents that our phone lines are in good working order. Email is also still in good working order, and students have access to their Chromebooks. So there's always an option for the high school students or parents to utilize those ways of contacting their kids during the day. He did an extensive evaluation of cell phone bans in schools, which led him to conclude that the policy adopted must truly give children and teens a full school day away from their phones in order to be effective. He cited 2 ways to go about this that seem to have worked in some buildings. We had an extensive conversation as a faculty today in our meeting to start looking at those 2 options. He offers several suggestions for how it could be done, which, as I said, we've explored. But whatever specific approach we choose, its level of success will depend greatly on your action as a committee. The research is clear. For a cell phone ban to work, enforcement cannot be left solely on the shoulders of individual teachers. It's something we all have to do together. Administrators and the school committee have to lead the way and offer their full unconditional support. So please take the first step for this by developing a district-wide no cell phone policy for all Ipswich students in our school buildings. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, Jimmy, high school student representative report, please.
All right, so this being my last meeting, which is crazy to say as these 2 years have flown by, but I'm very excited for what's next. But over the past few years, I've actively chosen to speak up at the request of the student body when issues or their voices wish to be heard. And as a student rep, I've been immersed in productive conversations most of the time and gain invaluable experience just listening to the bi-weekly meetings and the discussions and learn how to be an active member in a community, which is really special. And I'm very happy I was a part of it. And thank you guys for making it a good experience as well. That's it, I think.
Thanks, Jimmy. Okay, so we can move on. I apologize, we're quite behind schedule, but we are excited to have an update on the Whittier Tech School from our new Whittier Tech School Committee representative, Carol Sullivan. So I will invite you to the microphone just to introduce yourself, even though we've met you already, and hear what's going on at Whittier.
Good evening. As you can see, I'm handing out a packet. The first page I had ready for the interview, and then it didn't seem appropriate to use it at the interview. So instead of printing it out, I saved paper. But then I wasted a lot of paper because I made the rest of it 16 font. So there goes that idea. You'll see the first part is a job description. I think that it's really important that the school rep understands and the school committee understands what our responsibilities are. I did not create this myself. I went online. I could not really even find a vocational school committee job description, but Belmont had some information about it. So I basically stole what they said. But as you can see, it basically, I do on the school committee at Whittier, I will be doing on the school committee at Whittier, what you people do here for Ipswich. Hopefully I'll be reporting monthly if needed, so that we'll keep everybody informed on what's going on. I will make sure that the Ipswich interest of the Ipswich residents are taken into consideration at Whittier. I'll work to maximize the educational outcomes for the students in the school. The school committee reviews and approves the annual budget, which we did the other night. We'll monitor school spending. We have our treasurer's report each month. Approve the superintendent's hiring and other administrative staff. Oversee the development of key policies. We're doing just like you are, going over the policies right now. Review and approve other administrative actions. And these are the really ones that I think got slipped up with the whole Whittier school budget proposal, new building proposal, is have an Ipswich representative is responsible for keeping key elected and appointed officials within Ipswich aware of various developments at Whittier which impact Ipswich, and getting input from the Ipswich boards to share that with the Whittier School Committee. So instead of us just coming and saying to you, this is what it is, we'll have an exchange of ideas. I've spoken to Kate about it, and we're talking about, we'll have like, with the new building project, whatever does come out of it, Kate will look to set up a tri-board meeting where we'll have the superintendent and the business manager come and meet with the tri-board so that there will be no surprises. I think that was a big problem that we had down the road. When appropriate, recommend actions that are in Ipswich interest and advocating for within Ipswich on Whittier's behalf. Whittier has all the programs. There are things in town that we can do that could help Ipswich. We need to get Ipswich to recognize that Whittier could really perform a real benefit for them. I was over at the library the other day. There's some ideas that I'm getting there that we could do to help Whittier. Whittier can help Ipswich be better. And included in that, the responsibility of meeting on an as-needed basis with the Board of Selectmen Finance Committee and making presentations at town meeting. So basically, if you all want to review that and if we agree upon it, then we'll all know what I'm supposed to do. And now we go to the 16 font. I can take my glasses off. As you saw the other night at the town meeting, the Ipswich budget for Ipswich is 7.9% less than last year. Part of that is because we have 3 less students, so it's not as great as it sounds. But Maureen has done a really good job trying to keep the numbers in line. Whittier has 27 students attending. There are 7 seniors, 6 juniors, 10 sophomores, and 4 freshmen. This year, Whittier received 23 applications from Ipswich. They have waitlisted 8 and accepted 15. I have not heard how many of those 15 that were accepted have planned to go. You can see the tech programs that they have. Current Ipswich students participating in the technical programs, Autobody has 2, CAD and drafting has 2, carpentry has 3, Cosmo has 1, medical assisting has 1, dental assisting has 2, electronics 4, auto tech 5, plumbing and heating 1, marine tech 1, engineering 1, culinary 1, electrical 1, health assisting 1, and metal fab 1. So we're all over the place at Whittier, as you can see. Co-op. Co-op is a really important part of a technical program. When a student has the number of hours and the appropriate training, has satisfactory academic grades and good technical grades, they can then go out and work in their junior year, halfway through their junior year, usually it is. And so what they do is they go to their technical area 1 week, and they go to their academic area the other week. During their technical week, the student goes directly to a job where they are learning, and they are also getting paid for going to school. So they really enjoy that part of it, obviously. Currently, some of the co-op employers that we've had in Ipswich are Napa Auto Parts, John's Auto Repair. John JJ is our mechanic, and he graduated from Whittier. Ipswich Smiles, Bilo, and Morris Heating. Jason Camps Builders, DJ Fabrications, Hard House, Pomodori's, Curran & Sons, Dennis Curran Electrical, and then Machining, Little Enterprise, Target Machine, and Essex Engineering. So we currently have 3 juniors out on co-op and 4 seniors on co-op. So the more we can get businesses in Ipswich to hire co-op students, again, the more exposure we get. The better it is for Ipswich, the better it is for Whittier. You'll see the budget, the state establishes the amount of money that must be paid by the schools, and then there's other assessments such as transportation, capital assessments, educational assessments. So the total for Ipswich is $559,889. That capital assessment was for the replacement of an electrical panel at $265,320, and the replacement of a water waste treatment pumps at $303,345, coming up to a total of $568,000. $1,665. And Ipswich has to pay their portion. Based on what I can tell, and I've only been dealing with Whittier for a short time, they do a real good job getting grant money. They have received $3,874,648 in grant money this year. And what they do with that is they're using it, it's usually primarily used to purchase equipment for the tech areas. Those machines in a machine shop are very expensive. And even one time we had an oven go south at North Shore Tech, and I go to the principal, I go, the oven in culinary stopped working. He goes, so go out and buy another one. I said, it's $400,000. Or something like that. I forget the exact amount. He gets up, I go, where are you going? He goes, I want to see what an expensive oven like that costs, but it's a revolving oven, and it costs a whole lot of money. Cost per student, which was interesting, and I got this from the DESC 2022. Ipswich's cost from that report was $20,914.21. Whittier's tech per student was $22,809.97. So we're talking a $1,900 difference there. So technical education is expensive. I'm not going to lie, it isn't. But it seems like they really are keeping it in line. And the really exciting point here is number 7, which is Healy Driscoll's administration to explore a shared campus model for Whittier and Northern Essex Community College. So that is something that Maureen has already written up an SIO,
SOI.
an SIO for it, and got that in to MSBA. And, I mean, that could really, I think if you've read the press releases, there are all sorts of senators and people on board with this. If we can make this work, if we can get, the state to back this and help defray the cost and use the new campus, the Necky campus, which apparently, I haven't been down to it yet, is 3 minutes away from the Whittier campus, this could really be a win-win for all situations. Technical education is expensive. But if we can, from 7 to 3, use it for the high school student, and then from 3 to 9, use it for the community college and adult learner, I mean, we're getting a return on our investment. So this could be a really exciting thing. I spoke to Kay to make sure that they put it on, that the finance committee is really aware of that. Some of the things that you can see in here, the budget considerations that they talked about, payroll, health insurance, other insurances, expanding opportunities for students. These are all pretty basic. And then, of course, the replacement of the loss of the ESSER funds and the replacement of the electrical panel. You can see her budget goals, the budget overview. You can read as well as I can read that to you. Some of the reasons for the budget increase was contractual obligations, health and retirement cost, and Student Opportunity Act, and other budget considerations. They're trying to use grant funds to purchase equipment. They've got to hire 3 more teachers and money lost from ESSER and level services of supplies. You can see in here I put in the past 6 years the amount of grant money they received. $13,403,676. So they've been really able to fund their equipment based on, they must have a real good grant writer over there getting the grants. And for their future plans, strategic plans for the building to expand access to vocational programs, expansion of the adult education program. They do a lot of, plumbing, where when you're a plumber, you have to go on and take additional courses and things. So they have courses so that our plumbers and electricians in town can continue getting the necessary certificates that they need to continue. They're looking into adding the construction craft laborers program, which is a really big program. I didn't realize that. We did it over at Essex Tech too. I didn't realize how involved and what a good job the construction craft laborers are, and multi-tiered systems of support. So some of the things here, the next thing is what our seniors are doing that are graduating. I had to take the names out. The names are removed to protect the innocent. But we have a student in electronics. He's currently employed at Rochester Electronics, and he will be going on to Worcester Poly Institute for either robotic engineering, or computer science, and he is part of the early college program. We have an auto body student. He is in collision, and he is going on to NECI for business, which is important. You can't start a business if you don't know how to run the business. You can fix the cars, but you need to make sure you know how to control the business. We have a student graduating from dental, and she's at Ipswich Smiles with Dr. Curtin, and she's going on to NECI for biology, and she's an early college student. We have a carpentry student that's taking a gap year. We have a cosmetology student that is going to NECI and right now is undecided in her major, but will be continuing on in Cosmo, doing Cosmo work while she's deciding what she wants to do. Carpentry is going out to employment. And we have an health assisting student who is at Masco right now and in Topsfield doing co-op, and she's going to St. Anselm's College for nursing. So what's really nice about a technical high school is that we have students that will go on, based on their program, go on to a 4-year school and a nursing program or, biotech or whatever. And, but we also have programs where the carpenter's going to go out and start working, be an apprentice with the carpenter and move on his own way. So it's a really nice option. There will be 311 students graduating from Whittier on May 30th. And of those, 108 participated in the early college program. So you can see, some people used to think that academics weren't important at a technical high school. They are very important. You don't want to have an electrician not know how to do math. That would be bad, the voltage in your house. They have 2 presidential scholars, and they have 10 students receiving the Mass State Seal of Biliteracy. They had 5 students who are competing at the national skills level competition in electronics and teamworks, and that's really important because they're competing against they competed against all other carpentry students and things in Massachusetts, and they were selected to go on. So that just reinforces what a good job the technical teachers and academic teachers are doing there. And then we have they have a new marine tech program, and you can see, I read this in the paper, so I can give you his name. Forrest Gonzalez received the Yamaha onboard certification. I'm a boater. It's very hard to find a good marine tech, so that's exciting. They're having a prom on May 28th at Blue Ocean in Salisbury. Graduation is May 30th. They had a 0% dropout rate last year, certified by DESE. And Whittier, I just met one of the vocational directors. They were here at the STEAM presentation. So you can see a lot of great things are happening at Whittier Tech. And my job is to make sure that you people know it and the people in Ipswich are aware of the wonderful things that are happening in there, get people to go up to their restaurant, get people, you can get your car worked on. I used to say it was like a city. You could get everything done. You could get your nails done, you could have lunch, you could get your oil changed, and have flower boxes made for your house. So it's a really, and I've been up there a couple of times lately. It's a really nice place. I think I'm excited. Can I answer any questions for you?
I was happy to see Whittier Tech at the STEAM
Wasn't that nice?
event. Yeah, and they were super nice. I was like, oh, so what do you have here? And it was like so many exhibits that they fit on this one table or maybe 2 tables.
Yeah.
It's hard to pick what you want to represent from
Exactly, to
Whittier
show this,
Tech.
exactly.
Yeah, but they took me through each of the, look through here, and I think
That's what he
it's
said, he
gonna-
had 3 students with him, and a teacher, and
Yeah,
there was the
yeah.
coordinator. Which is important, I mean, it's really exciting. They go up, when a freshman goes up to Whittier Tech, they explore the programs, because they really, what does a carpenter do? A carpenter's an easy one. An auto tech or collision repair. What do they do? A cosmetologist. So they go and spend a week in each shop, and then from that, they will then decide on what they want to do for a career. And regardless if you end up deciding to do that for a career, whatever you learn during that time is wonderful. And then as we were saying, kids nowadays, they need to feel valued and part of something. When they join their technical program, it's like joining a family. They're together with those children, fellow students, 6 hours a day, every other week for the next 3 years. And you get really close to them. I used to bake them a cake on their birthday. So, that's how close you get to them. You just love them to pieces. So, and it's really good for them because they help one another. We had one time, we had portfolios at North Shore in Essex, And the students would present their portfolios to people from industry, and we had this child that had autism. And you were supposed to wear a tie and a jacket, and he didn't do that. The kids in the shop, one gave him his tie, one gave him a shirt, they dressed him up, and he went in. And then it was really exciting, because his special ed teacher was during the presentation, the child shook hands with the employers that were there, and children with autism usually don't do that. I mean, they were all excited. So what they do is they really build the students' confidence, and they see everybody else is doing it. I can do this. And the kids will tell them, you can do this, you're going to be fine. So but as I said when I was interviewed, technical education is a really wonderful option. It's not for everybody, but it's a wonderful option for those students that, want it and enjoy it. So, are there any other questions I can answer?
Looking at the application information, I'm just curious to how it works. For Ipswich, does Whittier have a cap on students that they'll accept from Ipswich?
No, they do not. But I'm new, so I'm not 100% sure on how it goes. So I'll have to get back to you, but I will get back to you on that. My understanding is there are no caps, though. But they do it, and they interview the students. They look at discipline, they look at grades, and then they have the interest in the interview process, and from that.
They'll get in.
So, and just because somebody's on the wait list doesn't mean they won't get in.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of kids apply to 4 or 5 different high schools. They may not just be applying to Whittier, they could be applying to St. John's Prep. They try different things, so, but that's a good question. Thank you.
Thank you. It's so exciting to hear about all the wonderful things going on. It was great to.
sorry.
So it's sorry, it's super loud right here. It's really exciting to hear about all the wonderful things going on, and I loved seeing Whittier represented at the STEAM showcase. So that was great. I'm wondering about this lovely list you put together. Does this live anywhere? Is it your intention for it to live anywhere? Like, do you know if any other?
Other school, as I said,
Yeah.
this is the only thing I could find. It was Minuteman, and Belmont had a paragraph of what Belmont expected their rep at Minuteman to do. And what was really interesting is Belmont was leaving it.
Oh.
Minuteman had a bunch of schools, they had a little uprising in there, so they lost a bunch of towns. So my thought is,
It's for the people at home. It's not for us.
no, that's okay.
Helpful. Thank you.
So my intention with the job description is nobody should be given a job without knowing what they're supposed to do. So I went out, this is the best I could find, and I wanted to give Belmont, their
Yeah.
due, because they really put it together. But, I didn't see any for anybody. Technical schools tend to be like a stepchild. They're not, they're not the focus of the town. And we used to sell yearbook ads, and the kids would come back and they'd say, Ms. Sullivan, they say that we're not their high school, and that was what it is. I think now, with how people realize how valuable technical education is, try to get a plumber. As I said, I couldn't hire somebody from Bilo. I had to go into Craney. I had to go out of town to get my own plumber. So people are now realizing that technical education is a really good option. I was doing scholarships. I'm on a committee at the Aqua for scholarships. Schools are $95,000. I couldn't believe it. I'm looking at some of these schools. They're $95,000. They're $86,000 for 1 year. People don't want to pay that and not be guaranteed a job. I did co-op after I graduated, after I retired. And I could have placed 1 million electricians, 1 million machinists. There are 1 million machine shops out there looking for people. There are jobs for students that want to do this. It's a really viable option. So to answer your question, I think this should be part of policy or something, and you can change it, but this is what we expect our school committee rep to do. In talking to Gary James, I don't know, he just didn't seem, like he was coming to tell people. But that's because I don't think he thought he had to. I don't know.
I would suggest maybe, this is a great start. I think seems really comprehensive to me. I think we could certainly talk about it as a school committee. I would also like to run it by the chairs of the other boards because
I should have a relationship with them, too.
Yeah, and I want to make sure
Exactly.
they know, because there's a lot that has to do with the budget. So are you reporting that to us? Are you reporting that to the finance committee? Is it both of
Right.
us? And how often? So I think we can definitely,
Well, and then, quite honestly,
Yeah.
Maureen and Whittier should go to the tri-board meeting with the budget
Yeah.
prior
Yeah.
to it
Yeah.
being
I'm going to
approved.
take it one step further. I believe, and I believe this to be accurate, with the area agreement for all of the schools that send to Whittier, outside of appointing the representative, and I think historically, it may have been one of the people
School
on the
committee,
the
yeah.
actual school committee that was appointed as a rep to Whittier. Outside of that appointment, the budget presentations, the ongoing conversations between Whittier, it's not necessarily with the school committee, so that wouldn't become our school district policy. That would be more a town
That's true, yeah.
board,
because it's
a
not
select
our
board.
money.
You're right, because
Right.
it's,
Budget
right,
isn't our
exactly.
money, it's town.
So.
Yeah,
so
I mean, that's where we have to,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Yeah,
get these
we have
things
to
squared
finesse
out,
that.
who reports to who, and I mean, the agreement from 1967 is, I've read it, it's so cute, it's typed on a typewriter. I mean, it's that old, and it has to be revisited. Now, I met with Stephen Crane,
Yep.
and he has, he's on a committee, so, and I was very happy about what Bruce Tarr said the other night. He sounded like the state was really there, and he even mentioned the agreement. So, I mean, we've got to get something done with that agreement. But that's something that we have to work on. So
Thank you.
So I
there's
think-
plenty to do.
Yeah, I really appreciate your enthusiasm and how
you.
communicative you've been over the past, I don't know, 6 to 8 weeks since you've been, or maybe not even that long, since you've been on. So I really appreciate it. I feel like we're off to a really good start. It's exciting to see everything that's going on at Whittier. In terms of the job description, I know there's an election next week, so there's going to
Yeah,
be some board
everybody's-
turnover.
yeah.
There's going to be some chair turnovers over the summer, probably, so, but I think this summer, we can certainly,
Look to it and
come
see what we can
together
do. Yeah.
and solidify this, and certainly get you on the budget
Yeah, the
calendar that we
timetable for
build.
that, so,
Yeah.
so I can tell Maureen so she knows when it needs
Yeah.
to be ready.
Yeah.
Because just putting it up on the Whittier, website isn't enough, it has to,
Yeah.
we need to go and have a discussion on it.
Yeah.
So, and she's wonderful, as a matter of fact. Talk about all the figures I got and everything. I'd send her an email, she'd get right back to me. So I'm really pleased to work with her, because she's doing a really good job, in my opinion.
I also think we should get your name on our website somehow. It's just who you are and how to reach you. And
That'd be lovely, not a problem. Great, so if there aren't any other questions,
Maybe just a quick comment. I think it's great that you put all this together, and I particularly appreciate how proactive you've been with recommending the responsibilities, the communication, so thank you for that.
oh, thank you.
Yeah.
No, I think it's a really good, I think Whittier's a really good place, and we have to really go out. I mean, and that's what, the superintendent can't be selling Whittier to the people in the towns. That's what the representative should be doing. And as I said, we're doing a fairy garden at the library, and they have those signs, and they're kind of falling down. I said, oh, maybe we can get Whittier to make you new signs, and to put the pages in. So, and that's what making people aware that they're there. That's the big, what they're there and what you can do. You can go I had scallops there for like $9. They were delicious. So, got to get people
School
up for
committee
lunch.
retreat at Whittier this summer, maybe.
You can get your hair done. Okay, if there aren't any other questions, I will.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carol.
Super helpful.
Yeah, that's great. All right, so on to town meeting debrief. I don't know how much we have to report. Stormy town meeting went pretty swimmingly in our department.
You had 5 hours to absorb it all.
It was long, but yeah, I'm pretty pleased. Obviously, our budget passed, and I'm happy we were able to increase the number given to stabilization over what we had originally estimated. I think everyone did a good job and was well prepared, and thank you for helping out. Other thoughts on town meeting?
No.
Ways to make it shorter?
Yeah.
I was thinking we could have a third. We could have a third and make it not as long.
Third town meeting.
Well, they could be shorter. That's a whole other question.
I think a shout out for Jim Engel is in order. I mean, that's a lot to,
Tough job.
it's a really tough job, and he did it with grace and humor and
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I'll shoot him an email in the morning, because I agree. That's a tough job. Okay, so moving on to FEFI Policy Working Group update. This is a group that's been meeting periodically through the year to give some attention to our FEFI policy and see if there's areas we can update it, clear it up.
Yeah, I think for those, I think everyone probably knows this, but in case you don't, I think the sort of guiding principle behind our group all year has been to relook at our policies around paying grant distributions, twig distributions, and try and figure out whether or not we're meeting what we say we're meeting. You know, and that involves going back and having conversations with the original authors of this policy and trying to understand the original intent behind it, what scared them, what inspired them. And I think that's given us a lot of ideas. It's also, I mean, I'll speak for myself, it also kind of put a chill in my bones because, you know, trying to make sure that that what we're doing lives up to what we want it to do, while also ensuring that there's guardrails so that this doesn't become something we don't want it to become, has turned out to be a lot harder than I thought, at least. But anyways, we've been kind of chipping away at that. I think we wanted to make sure we at least got a few things done so we could kind of prove to ourselves that we could do it, rather than kind of spin our wheels in a sort of a never-ending conversation, which I think as the year went on, we got better and better at it. And big shout out to Jeff for putting a lot of that effort in. I mean, having the sort of legal background, I'm terrible at policy, and Diana as well. And so it was very helpful to have, you know, various people who had some expertise on this. So anyways, I think, Diana, once again, thank you for uploading that. If you see the DDA that she put up there, there's been some changes to it that we would like you guys to kind of potentially weigh in. And there's a few things that we have not tackled this year that we intend, I believe, to try and kind of tackle over the summer potentially, or at least begin to tackle over the summer. Some of the things, I think there's 2 or 3 big ones that we want to kind of talk about today, and Jeff or Diana, jump in whenever you feel like I've missed something here.
I'm not sure everybody has it up, Matt.
I'm working on it right now.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Everyone does
I
have
mean, I
access
have
to it, but
the
it's,
live policy. Is there an edited version that's?
Hold on. Here it comes.
Yeah, DDA for the purpose of discussion.
Yeah, so if it could be in tonight's.
So it's in DDA, yeah.
Is there an edit?
You see it now?
What's that?
Folder for tonight?
It wasn't, but it sounds like maybe it is now.
I just did a search. I did
Yeah, I think I
DDA,
found it in the FEFIs.
and then it'll say, if you search it, DDA.
I can find the live one, but I thought we were looking at an edited version.
Hold on, I just did a copy of it, and it's in the folder now,
Policy folder or the meeting folder?
our meeting folder for right now. Maybe you just refresh your screen, but it's in there.
There it is. Technology. Okay, thank you. Sorry, Matt.
No, it's fine.
Is everybody seeing it?
It would have been very awkward if I was yammering on about something that no one else can see.
No one was going to say, does everybody else?
When is it going to stop?
The Charlie Brown teacher.
Yeah, exactly.
And mother.
Is everyone able to find it?
Yep.
All right.
I see highlighted parts.
Yep,
Is
some
that right?
highlighted parts in there. Some stuff is I think, not necessarily big changes. So I kind of want to hit the big ones. If you scroll down, any remaining balance. This has to, about the policy of returned funds. And I think, Tom, I don't know if this needs to be weighed in terms of how this accounting might work, but there are returned funds each year, or we think, not every year, but in many years. And one of the things that we've noticed is that some people's paying grants, for example, come in and they ask for $50,000 for something and then it costs $60,000. And in some cases, that was unforeseen, like they didn't realize that they needed, schematics, from some group or another. What would they have to come back to the paying grant each time if that happened? And what we wrote in there is in the event of the total amount required to fully support a previously approved grant unexpectedly increases after the grant approved by a school committee, previously returned funds may be made available to fund such unanticipated increases upon a vote and approval of the school committee at any time during the year in which the grant was approved. All right, so it doesn't guarantee that they could do it, but they wouldn't necessarily have to go back through the whole process unless we thought that they got that wrong.
Can I interrupt real quick?
Yes, please.
I tried to make a copy of DDA to put into tonight's folder, but it didn't take over all the comments, so I just dropped the original DDA in. So if you look at that one, that actually would probably be easier to follow. Sorry.
Yep, that's fine.
So a recent example of this was I think it was the French trip this year. And so the French and Spanish trips both came in. They were both approved by the paying grant. They were approved by the school committee. After that approval, enrollment increased in one and decreased in another. And so in order to cover that percentage of the cost for, I think it was the France trip, they asked to be able to siphon or to shift money from one grant to another. In this case, which we don't have a policy for. In this case, they could have come back to the school committee and say, we have 30 students instead of 25 students, we're asking for an additional $10,000. And we could do that from return funds.
Sorry, can you clarify? The school committee would do that without going back to the.
It doesn't have to go back to the
Okay.
grant committee, as long as it's in the same calendar year.
Yeah, I like
They're
that.
not
Thank you.
adding anything to the grant's the same.
Correct.
It might just be a couple more kids on a trip or a couple, yeah.
Now, the key word in there is also unexpected increases. If we determine that the original approved policy just missed the money, we can just simply say, no, we need to go back through the process again. But it's within our purview to do so. And I think but again, I don't know about the accounting side of that, if that presents any challenges, but we thought that would streamline some of these things, because, getting an accurate budget is not always an easy thing, particularly if, with cost increases on certain things rising faster than anyone anticipated,
Just a flip of that, another real-life example would have been the outdoor basketball court gazebo area. That was approved in one grant cycle. It then took more than that year. They needed more money. In that case, the school committee would not have discretion just to approve it. It would have to go back and reapply
yeah,
for the additional funds.
the additional, yeah. So that's that 1 year piece is also a key element to that. Anyone have any thoughts, comments, or?
And this is, we would not require an additional check from the FEPIs, because this is money we have that's been,
Right.
we have control of that money.
So essentially, it would amount to a shifting of the funds, like in Jeff's example of the French and Spanish trips, we knew that there was an under subscription on the one trip, so we were able to utilize that money for the other trip without impacting anybody else's grant. It was just those two that we knew we had the funds available for.
How would that be handled in a situation where there isn't the shifting, but let's say that just the France trip increased and that exceeded the funds we had for the year? What would you do in that situation?
Then it would have to come back to the school
would have to
committee for additional
Okay.
funding, I think.
Or alternative funding?
Well, the school committee has discretion to ask FEPIs to
Oh, okay.
return funds to us that we've previously sent to them.
Okay, got it.
I don't know, again, the mechanics of that, how that work, I don't think we've done it, but.
Well, not in my time, but that's still relatively short in the grand scheme of this. One of the things that I would say that having a sort of a roadmap will be incredibly helpful. So almost regardless of how you land on the policy, the absence of one is more problematic than whatever you're going to design. So that's first thing I'd like to just offer. With regard to the France and Spain trip, just my other 2 cents in talking with Dr. Blake, when that request was made, we felt there was we were maintaining some fidelity to the purpose. We weren't taking the money out of a European trip and giving it to our robotics, say, right? There was some fidelity to the intention of the teachers that applied, and there was an obvious need that was really outside of their control. So that was sort of the conversation that we had about thinking that would be a fair and reasonable. It wasn't really shifting money to something entirely different. The other example that Jeff, that you gave that takes multiple years, perhaps we do want to talk about a bit, maybe not now, but in the course whenever is appropriate, because if something is going to take multiple years without a guarantee or even a real expectation that there will be future money available, either the Fairfax Committee or yourselves may be a little more cautious about awarding the funds in the first place.
Right.
So I think that may not be as straightforward as you're putting out there. Like the example that you used on the outdoor, outdoor activity area. If there wasn't a real commitment that this was something you wanted to do, and you had to, everything gets put on hold, then that really would have been difficult to do, to complete without an expectation or without a commitment to future funding.
I think when the grants are written, it's hard for educators to necessarily know all the ins and outs about the engineering that needs to go into projects and things like that. So I think I think that outdoor project was a little bit different than what we typically see, and so I don't know that that's going to be the norm. And now I think folks also know that they have to be careful if they are going to write a grant like that. But to your point, I think if the money isn't going to be used that year for a specific purpose, I think we have to be careful.
Yeah.
Okay. So moving on, couple of sort of, I guess what you would call them, smaller tweaks. I think we went back and forth trying to figure out how long the term should be on paying grant committees. I think we settled in on 2 years. We originally said, well, maybe 3, just so we have more continuity, but then we were worried that actually might be something that would dissuade people from wanting to be on the committee if it was too long of a commitment.
3 terms or 3 years?
3 years.
How long is the term? Is 1 term?
It's 1 term, yeah. So 1 term for 2 years, and then, but not term limit anybody.
Okay.
But we were worried if it was a 3-year term, that people might be like, I can't commit to too much of that,
3 years is long.
People in this room might know a thing or two about that.
That's where I was going with that.
So that was that. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on whether that you think we missed the mark on the 2-year term. Okay, fairly straightforward, I suppose. Then we added the end of the year reporting into that, which was we brought up at a previous meeting, which I think we're going to try and grab as much as we could for this cycle for that reporting, although I don't know how successful that will be, but really implement it for the next year. And drive home that it's a part of the project and that it's a necessary component to it. And there's some language in there about failure to do so might result in not getting approved for future
Yes, if I can just interrupt
Please do.
quick there. Laura had reviewed some of that, and the form that we're talking about using for that is currently owned by you, so we need to trade it over to somebody else, so that somebody else owns it, and then she had other questions about, that we'll have to consider in terms of the policy. Where does it live? Where are the results going? And who's monitoring the results?
Yeah.
Right?
I
So
think
if
we
it's
had
if
not
it's a
come-
Google Doc that people are filling out, right now, all the results will be going to Jeff.
Yeah.
So we need to sort that out. And then it talks about a presentation at some point. And so the question was, who's making that presentation and putting all that data together? And I think that might have been the conversation that you were having with Nat. So more to come on those pieces.
Yeah, I think that's going to be an evolving thing a little bit, too. It's also, we know, right now, it's coming out of central office to kind of get the teacher, or the people to do that. We might find out down the road that that's unworkable, and we have to come back and kind of,
Yep.
so I think this one we may have to kind of learn as we go a little bit, but.
What's the purpose of the end of the year report? I mean, if it's just going to sit in our Google Drive.
The purpose is
Say
to,
we did
is
it.
to report out to the FEFIs about the effectiveness of the grant,
Yeah.
to report out to the community,
Right.
and, then potentially our own internal, records
Ability,
about
yeah.
sort of the use of that money and whether it's, achieving its purpose.
We just need to make sure that that community piece, I think, happens. I think that's been a little patchy.
May I ask, who is considered the grant recipient? The school
The
district,
teacher or
the
staff
author,
member who
The author,
applies.
yeah.
no, not the business office?
No.
Just ask.
Starting to sweat over there a little, Tom?
No, just want to be sure. I want to be helpful.
I want to be helpful to know I'm not.
So I think it's a good start.
Clarity
Certainly,
is,
if nothing else, it makes Nat Pulse for happy. So I think, that's always a good thing. The next one we did had actually something to do with, we talked a lot about sort of these staffing positions that come up. So I think it was the Mandarin teacher at the elementary school, I think was the example we were using, which was a paying grant, and how long can a staffing position remain as a paying grant if it's still meeting the mission of being for, what's the term we're using, enhancement?
Yep.
Yeah.
Enhancement and enrichment.
And I think we put down that we did not feel as though that needed to be limited, but still needed to come back each year. Because we were very worried about these wonderful things that come out of paying grant that then end up being drivers to the budget. But then we're also worried about maybe having too many staffing positions eating into too much of the overall funds. And so this one was a little hard, but I think at the same time, if it has to come back annually for review, at least we have the opportunity, or they'd have the opportunity to kind of see the bigger picture and see what's happening. How do we feel about that?
I mean, the challenge always with that one is the timing of the district having to build its budget versus the approval of the paying grant. So you could say, yes, we're going to keep 2 world language teachers in the elementary schools. They're going to be funded through paying, and then they don't get recommended 1 year, and the budget doesn't have them in it. And then that's a
Right.
cut sort of unexpectedly. But
I would also think that they're having some job security for those teachers that we would employ, I think is a consideration too, that having a job that goes 12 months at a time may not make us as attractive a place to come to, or without that job security. So maybe if this is something like, maybe make a commitment for at least, 24 months, and then, somehow get staffing positions in a different cycle, so we can make a commitment to an employee that isn't,
I guess the other side is
that isn't so,
the policy doesn't require sort of that enhancement program to always live in pain. you know, the budget could absorb it at some point, but wouldn't be limited, saying, okay, this is a year we got to tighten our belts, and we can't take on those new ones, then you keep it in pain, but eventually, once you've absorbed it, the district owns it. But
And the converse of that is also true, for, you know, that it is the school committee and the superintendent who decide the priorities of staffing. So now you're sort of having another group contribute to those priorities or making priorities that may not be yours.
I think that's, to that point, that's going to be part of the bigger conversation this summer that we have as part of the retreat around this policy, is just how the funds are being utilized overall. And I think we're going to see when the Payne grants are approved this year, we're going to have some fuel for that conversation.
Yeah.
I would suggest, so I like the addition of the inclusion of that additional line there for the staff position. I think that gives us the flexibility. But in addition to that, for us on an individual basis to have the conversation we just had and make it specific. But this gives us the flexibility. Should it be, the Mandarin, it may not be the best example for it, but I could see you'd have something that was not a full-time position, but still consider something that you would keep going, and so you could come back for it in future years.
Yeah, I think
This gives us the flexibility for
the
that.
flexibility piece is nice, because it
Yeah,
doesn't have to automatically be drawn over, but it also allows a
You can handle it
conversation to happen.
situationally.
Yeah.
And I also think having it, like Tom was saying, 24 months or whatever, at the discretion of the school committee, gives a program and a teacher a chance to make it successful, you know, because sometimes there's a lot of kinks and, you know, something new or a new program or whatever. So, and then when the 24 months is over, then we can really have a conversation of, is this successful? Is this something that we want to bring into the budget? And I think more than a year, if needed, would help with the knowing if it's going to be successful or not.
And in terms of things coming in Payne grants that might not align with our staffing plans, you approve Payne grants before they come. So I mean, you would,
We do
for
monitor
staffing
that.
ones, you would make sure that they would align with, you know, the way that the district is thinking. And typically, they are programs that we're introducing to sort of see how, like, computer science started
Yep.
there, and
Or a language
or a
program
language
started
program,
there.
yeah.
Yep.
All right, good. The last one, under committee membership, so I mentioned the two-year term. At the very bottom of that, we had a pretty robust discussion about, and this really kind of goes back to last spring when we had that one particular Payne grant that the committee broke into three different pieces, had approved two, but had not approved the third. And we kind of had some questions over whether we could approve something that the Payne grant had not. And I think in the end, we decided, at least in the working group, that we thought the guardrails around not being able to override the Payne Grant Committee's recommendation was an important guardrail to keep in place. But we also, having encountered what we had last year, which we thought would have been something maybe we would have approved, had it been our choice, we did want to include an opportunity for, if that scenario arose, for the Payne Grant Committee to move it to us. If they couldn't come to an agreement, they would have to move it, they could move it to us for us to vote on. So we couldn't originate that, but it could come from them, right? Because I think we ran into the problem is that project kind of didn't work without all three components built into that. And so that would give them an opportunity, if they were maybe very close on the vote and they kind of recognized that it was important, to punt it up to us. But we wouldn't be able to override something that wasn't originated from them, that was being sent up.
So if the Payne Grant Committee said, no, this is not appropriate, or we don't approve this, then it wouldn't move up to us to make a decision. It's only if they say, we're not sure.
Right.
This could or couldn't be in, and we'll pass it over to the
Yeah,
school.
we're very close in the vote, and,
Yeah.
you know, this is maybe, like, it could be, you know, an anomaly to what happened last year, you know, but we
Yeah.
thought some policy around that might just be helpful
Yeah.
if that arose again. But yeah, it would have to originate from them to come to us.
Right. Yeah. So we can't overturn their vote if it's a no. Okay.
So those are the sort of changes that we made. Again, I think this is an evolving discussion. There's a bunch of stuff we didn't get to this year that we're going to try and chew on this summer, maybe. But I think the overall feeling is that we have to allow this policy to grow as the total amount of distributions grow. But we also have to make sure that we're not letting this thing run amok. And those are two very hard things to sometimes always put into the same document.
Yeah. No, I think it's a really good start. I think you made some nice clarifications on some areas that were murky that we've
Murky,
had
yeah.
to wrestle with, so just providing some clarity around that is helpful. Are you looking to have this policy?
No, it's just for informational
Okay.
and discussion
just trying to get
purposes. this
feedback.
evening.
Okay, yeah, because I'm not
Yeah.
ready to vote on
No,
this.
no.
That's good. But is the plan to vote on it by the end of the year?
Probably not.
Yeah.
My guess is that we would look at it at perhaps in August or September as
summer.
part of the opening, so that we had things in place for the next round of grants.
Okay.
But I think a lot will come out of our discussions at the retreat.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll add, being the liaison to the paying grant committee, I have like a personal running list of, I'm like, ooh, did we think of that? Or it'd be nice to have clarity about that. So I think, like you said, this is a great first pass, and we've had some really good discussion, but now I feel like we've got some momentum to really, you know, get on a good track here.
Great, yeah.
Great. Well, thank you. Other questions about this policy changes? Right. Moving on to other policy reviews and approval. In your folder, you should have a
Whole list.
whole folder, which I've lost. And how far are you in the policy cycle, review cycle?
We are on track. We have one more meeting scheduled with a whole batch, that if we get through those, we will
We'll be
reach our
done.
goal.
Got it.
Yeah,
Yep.
which is really like a year and a half's worth of work, so go team.
Go, Diana.
All right, if it's all right, I'm going to start with the Bs, and then we'll jump back up to the 4 Ds that are showing up first. And this is actually pretty straightforward batch. So I'm going to just rattle through and just stop me if you want to chat more. All right, BEDH/E, minor rewording and reformatting, and we made sure it was synchronized with BEDH, which we approved earlier in this year, which is also about public comment. BEE, minor reformatting, and we specified that it's for public hearings in the title, so it's not to be confused with disciplinary hearings. BG, minor rewording, but no practice changes. BGB, no changes, it's what we're doing. BGC, this was a good one to review. It's about how we review policies. So we looked at the Ipswich-specific table that Dr. Blake had been a part of creating years ago, and we felt it was still relevant. And there was some minor rewording, but no practice changes. BGD, minor rewording, no practice changes. BGE, minor rewording, and we added that our policies are now available online. BGF, no changes. BHC, minor reformatting, no practice changes. BHE, minor rewording, a minor deletion about people not having computers, which is not relevant anymore. BIA, minor reformatting, no practice changes, it's what we're doing. BIBA, minor reformatting, no practice changes. BID and BJ and BK all had no changes. Then for the 4D policies, they all had significant wording changes to mirror the MASC policies, but there were no practice changes, and because they're financial, Tom went through them all and gave feedback, and they're capturing what we're doing.
Good.
I'm good with that. I just want to talk about sustainability after, but we can finish these ones.
I would move to approve the policy changes as described.
Further discussion? Oh, my turn. You started it. Keep going.
No, that's it.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor? All right, 7-0. Thank you.
I just touch base super quick about the draft of EBACA, which is this sustainability policy. So it's finally in a good place for a first review here. We've gotten feedback. Well, it was really a collaborative effort in the creation between the green teams at the elementary schools and the, as well as the middle and high schools, the environmental teams and everything. So that group felt it was good. We sent it to the food services director, and she said it looked great on her end. I started the little road tour last night. I went to Doyon, talked to their council in Fry's, and they thought it looked good. They're going to send me any feedback over the next week or so. And we're going to hit all the other councils. I believe Kate's going to bring it to the Climate Resiliency Committee. And you gave another suggestion of another place to bring it, so I'll look into that.
Yeah, the Waste Recycling and Advisory Committee, just because so much of it is about, I don't know,
Yeah.
recycling and waste.
Exactly,
So
yeah.
It seemed like a good committee to just weigh in on it. And I think the more town committees we present it to, they might want to develop a town-wide policy, so. Cool.
Yeah, so I think if this group, you know, between now and our next meeting, if you look at it and you have anything really pressing, you can let me know any feedback, and then we can continue to talk about it, and hopefully, depending on how many meetings we're having in June, we will,
We're having at least one.
okay.
Yep.
Maybe
Yeah.
two.
Oh, yeah.
So
We'll see.
hopefully we can get it approved this year.
I mean, I appreciate the language that it's kind of aspirational and not, I mean, I wish it could be prescriptive, frankly, but I appreciate that it's, you know, it's a start, and it's sort of, we'll do our best to abide by all of these things. Do you feel like, okay, so you're going to school councils, so they should.
Where did the language about the artificial turfs being replaced or used come from? Was that another school district? So specifically, it says ensuring that where artificial turf is used in sporting fields, toxic chemicals are not present in such installations, especially PFAS and other pre-fluorinated chemicals.
Let me see, a lot of it came right from Framingham, so I'll see if that was it, and then we had,
So I only bring that up because there is now a discussion about potentially banning artificial turf for environmental or health reasons, but also injury reasons. But then there's the balance of, that still has a usable life left on it. And then the maintenance of fields and just the beating that it would take at the end of seasons. But I wouldn't want to be so restrictive that kind of has an unintended consequence when that comes up to be discussed for replacement or something.
yeah, so that did come from Framingham, but I mean, it was everybody who was part of it looked at and said.
And again, because the language is like, encourage the reduction of, encourage the reduction of considerations may include, it's not like we shall not do these things. I mean, I'm not, I would like to abide by all of these, but
I make a note to myself to, said, put it in there so it's a consideration, but,
yeah.
you know.
Well, I think the header
reasonably.
is. Do you feel like this would be well received by the buildings?
Yes. A lot of the things are already in place
Yeah.
in the schools anyway, so.
I think it's, like it's aspirational, and I think it's a nod to trying to change the culture, or continue to change the culture in this direction. When I first got involved in town stuff, was trying to do some of this stuff
I'm full circle
a long
for
time
it.
ago. Questions about this? Okay, so maybe we can chew on it and bring it back for a potential vote at our, do you want to go to all the councils first? So that would need to be the later June meeting if we had it.
Yeah, the only one that falls outside of our next meeting is the high school council. So, yeah, if we want to truly get feedback from everybody, which would be great, then it would
We
be
should
at the
wait.
later June meeting if we're having
Okay.
it.
Sounds good. Thank you. All right, superintendent administrative report.
Yep. So, since it's been a busy couple of weeks here as we get closer to the end of the school year, Bev is trying to use up some of her vacation time. So prior to her leaving, I spent time getting caught up on several student cases that she'd been dealing with in the event that I had to intervene while she was away. The Wellness Committee held its first meeting 2 weeks ago now, and began by reviewing current and proposed policies for their functioning. The IEF also had their monthly meeting that night, so as soon as I was done with the Wellness Committee, I jumped over to the to the rest of the IEF meeting, which we'll talk about a little bit later. FEFI's working group also met and finalized some of the changes that you just heard about. Policy met. I've also spent time with Tom reviewing some of those policies that we just went over, but also the rest of the bigger packet I shared with him so that we're prepared for the next meeting. Because it's all the financial policies in that section, so we just want to make sure that we're square with how we're doing business. Ipswich Aware held our monthly meeting where we reviewed the drug take-back day that was held a couple of weeks ago. They took back like 400 pounds of medications, unused medications, so it was considerable. DEI team held our last meeting of the year last week, and we recognized our seniors on the group. All 4 schools are on target to complete their activities by the end of the year, barring any issues. Both the Winthrop and the high school will be recognized as No Plates for Hate schools. They've completed the 3 activities. Communications Subcommittee met to prepare the final newsletter. Again, we'll be talking about that shortly. As I indicated earlier, last week I attended the choir and wind ensemble concert on Wednesday night. Friday morning, I met with Adam Mullen and Kathy McMahon to discuss the remaining weeks of school. Kathy has graciously agreed to help out for the remainder of the year on a part-time basis, just to be a presence in the building and work with Adam. At this point, I'm leaning toward posting an interim administrator for next year with the intent of doing a search early next spring. I think it's too late to try to do a full search now. We're not going to get a good pool of candidates. Friday night, I joined Kate, Diana, and Jen Donahue at the junior prom. This week began with the agenda planning, my monthly update with the athletic director, and a negotiation session. I attended the legislative luncheon at Essex Tech, where we met with all of the area legislators that were available, thanked them for their continued support of our schools, talk to them about some of the concerns that we have with some of the bills that are currently pending, and then ask how we can better help them on the Hill with some of their decision-making. Tuesday night, our budget and school-related articles all passed by strong margins, no questions or debate. Now that the budget's passed, we're focusing on getting contracts and contractors lined up and the bidding done that needs to happen before we can move forward with any of that work. As you know, a lot of the things, particularly the capital items, we try to crank out during the summer, so we're kind of under the gun to get started with some of those things. So that's all taking place now. We're also continuing to close out continuing the closeout process, releasing unused encumbrances. Wednesday morning, I participated in the North Shore Education Collaborative board meeting. We received an update on their current construction project, reviewed their budget, and they reorganized their governing board for next year. Met with Michael Doherty to discuss storage at the Paul F. Doyle Memorial School. They're looking for, in particular, the Fry's group is looking for some storage space, and obviously it's at a premium in all of our buildings, but really at the elementary schools there is none. But they have all the totes and stuff that need someplace to be stored for the spooky walk that they do every year. So it's like 6 or 8 big totes of materials that they need someplace to store. So we're looking around on the property to see where we can put a storage shed to store all that with a lock on it. I also spent time at Winthrop with Amy Sullivan, walking the building and looking at several options for space in that building. Again, space is at a premium. They're bursting at the seams. They're in desperate need for additional space. They've pretty much converted every closet in the place that's even potentially usable for any other purpose into something different. So now we're at the point where, if potentially looking at carving up classroom space into smaller offices, which is going to be a fiscal challenge and a timing challenge, frankly, at this point, to have something done before the beginning of the year. Tom and I have also been exploring and talking about, is there some kind of a modular that we could temporarily bring in to buy us some time? I don't know what that would look like. I'm not envisioning necessarily a full modular with classrooms and stuff, but if we could do something with office space, that would at least take a little bit of the pressure off. So we're considering what that might look like. Spent a lot of time in the schools these past few weeks, dealing with a variety of concerns. And then finally, earlier this evening, I came from the STEAM Showcase, which was fantastic and very well attended. Next week, another busy week. We have the bridge presentations, so all of our seniors that are out on the bridge program will be doing presentations on the work that they did over the last couple of months while they're involved in the program. That's Tuesday night. Wednesday night is underclassmen awards. And then Thursday night, we have the senior prom. So it's another busy week, and we're closing in. And then Friday morning, we have the Memorial Day celebrations at each of the recognitions at each of the schools.
Just a question on that space issue. I mean, Winthrop has had many, many more kids in there 5, 6, 7 years ago? I don't, how, is it just different
It's not-
models of
yeah, well,
delivery?
it's
'Cause
different-
We've got a lot more kids in
Yeah,
that building.
it's not necessarily classroom space, it's the office space and service delivery space. I mean, we have desks out in the hall for delivery of services.
Administrative desks? What do you mean by office space?
Well, we need, the speech and language pathologists need a better place to work. They're sharing space with other service providers, and it's not even close to being optimal. The counselor, the social worker and the school psychologist are also sharing space. They both need space to be able to either do testing or run, group sessions and things like that. So those are the kinds of things that we're trying to orchestrate and move people around. Amy and Nikki were even talking about moving their desks in together in Amy's office, which to have both administrators in one office doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because then you have no place to have privacy, to have any conversations. So they're in a bit of a scramble to figure out where, how we can make the space work. So,
Yeah, I saw that firsthand on Wednesday when I was there, when I think Title I had to be in a stairwell because
Yeah.
of MCAS,
right,
you know?
yep,
So it's just a little bit of disruption in the whole thing.
Yeah.
And they're making the best they can, I mean.
yep, yep.
Other questions for Brian?
Frank, can you talk a little about, we got a few emails about high school sports, football, preparing, trying to get ready to get some
Yep.
things prepared for the students over the summer. Can
Yep.
you just talk a little bit more about what's
Sure.
going on there?
Yeah, so, good night, Jimmy, thank you.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Loaded question. So the Traverso Weatherall grants were submitted. Two of those grants, one was for a tackling sled. The other grant was for a summer conditioning program that they wanted to do. It was supported by it was written by football boosters and supported by the administration. Both grants were submitted. Long story short, both grants were denied. And so folks, the emails that you're receiving are, okay, so now what do we do? So John and I have been working to figure out, okay, how can we, there's not a whole lot we can do about the sled at this point necessarily, but the summer conditioning program, we've had conversations, and in fact, I had a conversation yesterday morning with the football coach. He happened to be over at the Paul F. Doyon Memorial School, just about what we can do over the summer to try to meet that need. We had a summer program several years ago, and it wasn't very well subscribed, and so it didn't continue. This particular group is wanting to have that, and I think they were talking about split sessions, one in the morning and one in the afternoon or evening, for kids that were working. So we're looking to see how we can make that work and support the kids.
Yeah, that's great. I know there's a good amount of interest. I know they've even talked about it being beyond football, because there's interest.
Right. Yeah.
From
Yep.
all,
Yep.
for-
Yeah, and I
from a
think in the
broader-
past, the volleyball coach had her whole team come in like a couple of weeks before school started to start doing some conditioning stuff.
Oh,
But,
summer.
yeah.
I don't remember the amount off the
Yeah.
top of my head. I was just thinking that, from a financial perspective, it'd be good for us to discuss as we get towards the end of the year. In my head, it's someplace in that 5,000 to 10,000. If we've got an opportunity to help make that happen, if we're at a place financially to do that, I think that's something we should discuss and consider as we get close to it.
Brian, when you said there's nothing we can do about the sled at this point, what does that mean? Why not?
In terms of the grant, I think they're looking to you know, the grant was denied unless we can find an alternative funding source, and I don't know how much it is. So, I mean, that we could take a look at.
Jenny, do you know?
Well, yeah, so I'm on TWIG and committee, and we just felt like it wasn't innovative, you know, and that's, you know, going to your conversations with the FEFIs and trying to, like, what is this for? What is the money for? And we were all like, oh, this is so hard. But ultimately, we have to, the money is for certain things and not necessarily equipment, and so that's why.
Yeah, and I, to your point, I think that we, you know, that's going to, again, be part of the summertime conversation, and part of the, I alluded to the fuel for the conversation. I think we're going to see not only those types of grants, but some of the paying grants are going to be, give us cause for conversation, I think, as well.
Thank you.
All right. Subcommittee working groups and liaison reports.
Attended IEF meeting last of the year. I think the next one's scheduled for September. They seem to be chugging along. I think there's a rolling theme, I think, within that group is trying to get the word out to the rest of the town of the good work that they are doing. So they're sort of always kind of searching for ways to kind of broaden their exposure to the rest of the town. I think a lot of people sort of say, what is that, you know, so. But they seem to be in good shape, and they're doing great work, so.
Do you have any fundraising plans for the summer?
They were loosely, I don't know over the summer, but I think they've been trying to kind of figure out what to do with, you know, I think they've been talking about golf tournaments. They've done that in the past, and, you know, some people aren't getting back to them, and so it's, you know, it's always it's kind of a difficult thing to pull off, because especially with the whole volunteer group, but, and then people are donating money, you know,
Yeah.
sometimes specifically to certain things, but oftentimes kind of more blanket, so.
Communications?
Communications, yep. We met, we have another newsletter that's in the folder. I had a couple last minute things to. So one thing is, we talked about having the SOIs available on the district website, so people can read about, like Matt was describing, the, you know, desk where students are getting their instruction under their stairwell. So that is, Laura, I saw Laura did put those up on the website, so there's a link to that. Just wanted everybody here to be aware. And then we have one spot pending based on the elections next week, so I'm hoping we can approve this pending, you know, Sasha just putting a quick little blurb in there. And then if you scroll down, Dr. Blake, are we still on track with the Pupil and Personnel Services Director?
Yes.
Okay, so that's all right to
Yes.
put in there, okay.
Yep.
And,
I think I noted that, did I not?
You said,
I think I wrote confirmed on
Oh, you did.
something. Looked at it this afternoon.
and then the 7 PM start time is going to remain for our next meeting, because I know there was a concert.
oh yeah, we were going to ask Laura to potentially bump the meeting up on June 6th to 6th.
Yes. But we haven't, is that what we want to do as a committee?
I think before we decided as a committee, she was going to check with the booth and make sure that it's
Okay.
all, that we could get access to the room an hour earlier before we floated it to the school committee.
Okay.
That was how we left it.
So let's do this. If we can we move our next school committee meeting to 6 o'clock as opposed to 7? And the reason for that potential switch is there's the big concert going on here that night for the D-Day celebration. It's the one of their fundraisers. So we expect a big crowd, and so there's going to be a lot of activity here. And we, because of other scheduling issues, we aren't able to move it to a different night or even the next week because of other things. So we just wanted to see if we could move it up and potentially keep it maybe a shorter agenda, if possible.
Yeah, so that we could
that-
not interfere with that concert too much and potentially go
Yeah,
to the end
yeah,
of it
and I
if we
can find
wanted
out
to.
from Brian Dozer this evening if that'll work for them.
So would 6 PM work on the 6th?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep,
all right,
yep.
thank you.
Okay. All right, so stay tuned for the decision on that. I maybe wouldn't put the 20th school committee, or you could put like tentative if you want. I guess I would either not include it or put a tentative, because we have historically not had that second June meeting, but I think it kind of depends what happens with Payne grants. We might need another more, if there's more back and forth with that. We might need it, or if anything else comes up, but.
What we've done in other newsletters was include it, so it was there. We felt it was better to include it, and then if the meeting got canceled, at least we knew, rather than not include it and have the meeting. Sorry, remind me, when does the newsletter get sent? When will it get sent this month?
It's the last Tuesday. Yeah.
Okay. Just going back to your previous point about the 6 PM start, I assume we would know by then, but.
We'll decide by,
Yeah,
we'll
yeah.
know in the next.
Yep.
And then we will, I think, try to have one more newsletter for the end of the year, so we'll connect on that.
Okay. Yeah, looks good. Let me just read, are we voting to approve it right now? Or we don't need, no, we don't vote to approve it. I'm just going to read this little section. Okay. Other subcommittees, working groups? Operations will need to meet to help onboard a new school committee member or two, hopefully only one, at some point. So we can talk about that next time, but it will be, you know, first week in, we kind of try to do it pretty quick. So first week in June, maybe. And Jeff is on that. So it is me and Jen, and we could use somebody else potentially to attend that meeting to help onboard somebody. If anyone's interested, let me know. Might depend, and that's pretty much, you won't need to commit to operations for the year. You could just come to that one onboarding meeting if you need to. All right, new business?
One, just, could we talk about the cell phone policy? First, I'll say I appreciate Ms. Slauson bringing it, personally supportive of it, and thank you for the teachers that have had the conversation around how to proceed. Clarifications for me, I'm just not totally familiar with procedurally. How does the middle school handle their policy should we decide in general to move forward for high school? What does that look like? Are we
Currently, I
drafting the
believe it's in
policy?
the
Are we
high
supporting a handbook? I'm not clear what that would be.
Yeah, it is a handbook revision / policy. So it would start there. I would ask that the policy committee and administration work together to formulate that policy. I'm not sure if MASC has any model policy for us to use or anything like that.
Do they?
I didn't find one under MASC, but I happened to pull one from Amesbury. So there's
Okay.
stuff out there that we could
District
look at
policy?
for Amesbury, yeah.
Well, that's the other thing
Yeah,
we
I think
could,
there's a district policy
Yeah.
that we would
Yeah, well,
have
that's what I mean,
stating the
yeah.
reasons, and then each school would have to implement.
the
their handbook
logistics
policy.
Yeah.
would be in the
Yeah.
handbook policy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it could be a double, we come up with a more general district-wide policy, and then the
Would,
handbooks.
Would the
Councils.
policy subcommittee have an opportunity this year to take it up if this committee wanted to?
Do it.
I'd love to.
So that was my question. I mean, since the policy subcommittee has cranked through essentially a year and a half of policies in a year, and gotten us on track with our review cycle, I wonder if there would be any leeway for the policy subcommittee next school year to keep marching through, but maybe there wouldn't be as many overhauls, and there may be more time for the policy subcommittee to dig into a couple hot topics that may come up.
Yeah, yeah, I think next year is definitely going to be a little more straightforward. But I don't know, I'm personally okay with like putting that item as a placeholder on our agenda, and then if we get to it next meeting, we talk about it. If we don't, then maybe we could talk about it more this summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, we received a grant at where I'm at, and so there's a committee formed around trying to create a policy for the school. And we found it to be more complicated than we originally thought.
Who it is.
The high school or the district?
This would be for the high school, I think, but it could be, I'm not 100% sure.
I think the high school's the most challenging, because even just when Becky was talking, I'm thinking they use cell phones in class sometimes, academically. They don't use lockers, in my understanding. So the middle school policy of putting things in the locker at the beginning of the day and you can't touch it till the end of the day. High schoolers tend not to use lockers. I mean, it's not insurmountable, but there's
No,
just
it's
things
not.
that are.
There's a lot more to it, I
There's a
think.
lot more to
Right,
it.
You know, some
Right.
kids need their phones to check their blood, glucose. There's
yeah.
lots of these little things that
Yeah.
all of a sudden crop up when you're trying to create a bigger policy that.
Yeah.
There was an article in the Globe a few weeks ago about DESI grants for pouches or caddies and things like that. So I don't know what the grant cycle is and how long it is for those funds to be available or districts to apply. But if that has like a June 30th deadline or something like that,
End of
maybe
June.
it makes sense to submit something to potentially get some money to implement something next year.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
suspect.
that was my second point. Totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, something with a Y or in that article that Citizen sent us.
Oh, I didn't see that one.
That was, yeah. Okay.
I mean, at minimum, if we could get a grant for those caddies as, it's not an ideal thing, but if it'd be too much of a leap to get something on the books for the start of next year, at least giving teachers some of those tools to be able
Move
to do it.
some- move
The
in
beauty
that-
of those
move in
caddies, too,
that
is they have handles
direction.
on them. So if you have an Alice situation or something like that, all those phone can come with you,
Right.
as opposed to those things that hang on the wall, which are much more sort of cumbersome.
Yeah.
You think, excuse me, is there something we can do in a smaller, stepwise fashion for policy for next year at the high school? Like, no phones in the cafeteria. Like, that's a smaller little, like, step in the direction.
No phones, you said? I couldn't.
No phones in the
Okay.
cafeteria. Might be like a step toward something that's more simple, like there's not much to think about other than no phones in the cafeteria. And then,
Potentially,
because that's a handbook change that could happen.
Yeah. My hesitancy is that the committee just makes that change in isolation without,
Having to be there to
Considering it.
enforce it and figure it out.
with the administration and what the implementation of that is going to be.
Right.
I mean, for example, in your example, teachers aren't on cafeteria duty. There's 2 administrators that are on cafeteria duty. To think that they're going to supervise that many students immediately, 200 students at a clip, and be monitoring cell phone use during that time is, I don't think, realistic,
But I see your point. Like, is there anything
But-
that we could do that
But yeah,
that is
like, what
easy?
can we do? I
Right,
agree.
that
I want to
has-
make sure that if we do it, it's manageable, and that the administration is on board, not something that's not going to work. Another example, I mean, we heard it from Jimmy a couple weeks ago, the hall pass policy was something that a lot of teachers wanted. Not all teachers wanted it, and so there's a big conflict about some teachers implement it, other ones don't. And then then you have the kids being confused and not knowing who's following the policy and who's not. So that, I mean, that's a much more mundane issue, but causes a lot of issues in the building. And so I want to make sure that if we're going to do this, let's make sure we get it right. And to your point, it's a much bigger question, because you're right. We have a number of students who are a great example, a number of students who are diabetics. Well, they monitor their blood glucose right on their phone. They know their levels. They report them to the nurse. How are we going to, what's the workaround for that?
Right.
You know, does it impact teachers? Are teachers allowed to be on their phone during the day? Or is it no cell phones at all?
Is
Or
the-
administrators, you know, so there's lots of pieces to it that I think we have to work through and consider, to your point, Matt.
Yep. Is the high, outside of the district policy, is the high school working towards making updates to include in the handbook for next year?
They're working on them now. I think this afternoon, they actually had a meeting to start looking at that.
Is there a goal to have a policy in place for next year?
I don't know that.
I want to say, I feel strongly that we should have, I feel strongly that there shouldn't be cell phones in the high school, in any schools. But, right, how does that happen? So I'm totally on board. It's just, we got to figure out how to do it. And maybe the mutual concerns meeting, are we meeting again for?
We can.
Yeah.
Because that might be, because then we can talk to the, you and, whomever, to try to come up with an idea that's something that they feel comfortable with, that we think is going to be, workable. So,
I think it's a good idea, and Brian, to your comment or question, I agree. I think that the high school administration takes the lead on it. The reason I wanted to bring it up is, one, to voice it, but I think we're hearing from everyone general support. There's things that need to be worked through, but it doesn't seem appropriate that we're taking the lead, which I don't think anyone is suggesting. But how can we help support the high school, the administration, and just overall in the district in any way? And so
Yep.
that's
Agreed.
that's what I'm hearing, and I
Yeah.
think our intention.
Yeah. The other piece to it too is in the development of a policy, we need to be prepared for community pushback, because for every parent that says, yeah, get rid of cell phones in schools, there's another parent lining up that texts their kids all day long.
Yeah, it's a cultural shift.
It is.
That's
It's
why
a
we're not gonna
huge-
have
It's
cell
a huge
phones.
cultural shift, right?
So
I'm
did
not
wa-
saying that out loud.
I don't want to talk about it too much tonight, just out of respect for the fact that it wasn't on the agenda.
Right.
And we should put it on
Oh,
the agenda
right,
and have a
right.
discussion that's
Yep.
advertised
Right.
and.
So we were
Why
just
don't
talking
I-
about the public comment. That's
No, I mean, I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah.
And I don't want to, I just don't want to get too deep into it and.
So why don't we try to organize a mutual concerns meeting to
Yeah.
discuss this with Mr. Mitchell?
Yeah,
And
prior to the end of
usually
the
at
year,
mutual
Yeah.
concerns.
which doesn't leave us a lot of time,
He's
but,
not at
right.
mutual concerns.
No.
He's not usually at mutual concerns. I might
Have them there. but
suggest,
you can ask.
Okay.
Yeah, it can be.
okay, or school council might,
Yeah.
I don't know. Might be a better.
Thank you after the end of June for those DESI.
I believe John has received the paperwork before we left the building today.
Thank you. Okay, vouchers and bills should be all set. Consent agenda. Move the Ipswich School Committee to approve the meeting minutes from March 21st, 2024, meeting minutes from April 4th, 2024, and meeting minutes from May 2nd, 2024.
Moved.
Is there another
Second.
April meeting missing in there? Motion by Jeff, second by Sasha. All in favor? All right, thank you.
One of the things that Laura and I have been discussing is the length of the meeting minutes and the specificity of them. I think it's a lot. If you look at
12
most
pages
meetings.
is a lot.
What's that?
12 pages is a
12
lot.
pages is a lot. I mean, the meeting minutes aren't supposed to be a
Yeah.
rehashing of the meeting. It's supposed to indicate that there was discussion on particular topics of note, what the votes were and things like that. And I think part of the concern is the length of time it's taking to get the notes, the minutes done.
So when she's,
Something for us to consider moving forward.
Yep.
when she's at the meeting, I know she hasn't been at the meetings
Right.
for a couple months because
Yeah.
she's doing this class. But when she's at the meetings, is she getting most of them done during the meeting or not?
No, not really.
Okay.
Not really. I think she could if they weren't as detailed.
Yeah.
I would expect that the Attorney General's office probably has a webinar or something as to sort of what complies with the meeting laws.
Yep.
Or
And
MASC.
maybe she could look at that, and I don't know who the note taker is for the select board, but I don't know if ours are drastically different than what they're producing. Are they?
I
Okay.
don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a good question. We can look.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Matt, second by Jen?
We're in stereo.
Okay, second by Diana. All in favor? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you. Good night.
Good night, Ipswich.
Good night, Jeff.